football lovers in Nigeria, Africa, and beyond. This is the season where soccer, or as some people call it, football, is at its most sublime and most spectacular. And there is nowhere else that you're going to get front row football action than here. Mundial TV is our name, and soccer is our game. From the 12th of June to the 13th of July, 1 month of incredible soccer action in 12 stadiums, in 12 cities, in the Samba nation of Brazil, to viewing centers, and right in your sitting room. The action is going to be fierce. It's 2014 FIFA World Cup. My name is Najite Dede. Welcome to the pitch. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Mundial TV. The FIFA World Cup is not just a contest between individual nations, it is also a contest between continental confederations. 2 years or so before the finals of a given edition of the tournament, all 6 confederations that are affiliated to FIFA, namely CAF, which is the Confederation of African Football, UEFA, the Union of European Football Associations, CONCACAF, which is the ruling body that governs North, Central America and the Caribbean, CONMEBOL, the ruling body in South America, AFC, which is the Asian Football Confederation, and the Oceania Confederation, organize the qualifying games in their zones according to their own jurisdictions. In a bid to present the best teams each region has to offer, at present, Europe presents 13 national teams. Africa, 5. South America has 4 automatic qualifiers. 5 this year because Brazil is hosting, with the 6th place team having to play an intercontinental playoff against a team from Asia. The CONCACAF zone, or Oceania, to qualify. Asia has 4 qualifiers, while the CONCACAF zone has 3 automatic qualifiers, with the 4th team having to qualify via an international playoff. So, in essence, a qualified team plays at the World Cup not just for the national federation, but for its continental federation as well. The African qualifiers, namely Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, and Algeria, are all set and raring to go. But what are their chances of making an impact at this year's World Cup? Are there any chances of them even taking the trophy home? To analyze this situation properly, we have to situate it against the backdrop of Africa's World Cup journey. And to go through that journey with us in the studio today are 2 sports analysts of no mean repute. Joining me is Wale Scott. He is a radio presenter and a veteran presenter on television and a well-known sports analyst. Wale, welcome.
Thank you very much. The word veteran is scary, really.
Okay, no, I hate that sometimes. It makes you seem
old, yes.
like you're old.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Okay,
experienced
sports analyst. Also joining me is an online sports promoter, blogger, and football analyst, specifically, Kennedy Okpara. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Before we go on to talk about Africa's football journey, let us talk in depth about the history of the World Cup itself. And we will do this right after the break. Welcome back. Now, following the success of the football events at the 1924 and 1928 Olympics, a Frenchman named Jules Rimet decided that football should have its own tournament. Now, the Association of Football, as it was then called, had a global tournament of its own, independent of the Olympic program. To this end, he founded the International Association of Football Federations, which is known by its French moniker, Fédération Internationale des Football Associations, or FIFA. The maiden edition of the Jules Rimet Trophy, as the World Cup was then known, was held in Uruguay in 1930. Now, only 13 of the invited nations came. Most of the others stayed away because of the distance between Europe and Uruguay at the time. The final game was held in Montevideo, which was the capital of Uruguay, between the hosts, Uruguay, and their neighbors, Argentina. It was won 4-2 by the hosts. Now, Wale, football has its first outing as a global tournament on its own in 1930. What are your thoughts at that point in time?
That's what we have on paper, really. If you ask my opinion, everybody's talking about Jules Rimet and all that and getting the trophy together, getting the World Cup together. If you want my opinion, some countries wanted bragging rights. Some countries wanted elbow room. Okay. Let me tell you what I mean. In South America, football was very popular. Okay. In Europe, it was very popular. In Africa, in most African countries, it was very, very popular. And 1930 was like, instead of taking away our bragging rights, our elbow room, we're going to show you guys. Because basically the Olympics, guys were getting ready for the Olympic football event, only for the US to say, listen, we don't like football in the country. It's not popular, so you can't play it in the Olympics. And basically it was supposed to be hosted by Los Angeles. Some countries were already getting ready, training to play football at the US Olympic Games in 1932. Okay. And they said, no, in the US it's not popular. We don't like it here because I'm not going to play it. So Uruguay and some other countries were like, oh, so you have to give us conditions now because you guys don't like it. You think we shouldn't like it too. Okay, we'll do our own tournament for football alone and we'll organize it before the Olympics. So the Olympics was in 1932 in Los Angeles, and they started the World Cup in 1930. Massive.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I did not know that. So Kennedy, what is your take on the formation of the World Cup, or the Jules Rimet Trophy as it was called back then?
Well, the Jules Rimet Trophy, to me, I would say it was a blessing because USA, it was very unfair on the part of USA to scrap football out of the Olympic Games. Okay. Basically because of the reason that it was not popular at that time in the US. Yes, they had the other sports, like the hockey and the American football and the rest of them. But football as a sport wasn't popular then, so they just scrapped it. And Jules Rimet was the whole countries that were involved then. It was something of a blow to them. Okay. So Jules Rimet came as a blessing then and said, okay, we should do our thing independently. We should do our thing. We should have a season for it. So it was it was supposed to be done in 1932 with the US, but since it wasn't going to be, since it was scrapped then, they did it in 1930, and Uruguay was given the rights to host it because at that time they were supposed to, experience their independence at that time. So they gave it to them to host it for the first time, and then they hosted it quite all right. Teams were invited to come over, but yeah, just like you said, due to the distance to South America, specifically Uruguay, even European teams had problems coming down there.
I think Uruguayans have only been inconsiderate. Then there were no planes, there were no Boeings, there were no. So most guys were going to go set sail by ship. That was more expensive. That was more life-threatening. That was more dangerous, considering the distance and all that. So I think Uruguay should have understood that. The stress of going, the payment by the countries and the Atlantic Ocean and all that, but they just didn't understand. They just felt like you guys didn't come, so we're not going to go for your own too.
Oh, that was a little later on. But I'm thinking that it's a case of one man's meat being another man's poison, with the Americans not really liking football or having their own, which I've never been able to understand. Sorry, American.
I think Uruguay has always said that. Listen, we're trying to bring the football together. We're trying to make the whole world see us as football has come to stay. They wanted football to become the biggest sport in the world, which they finally have done. But they wanted to be big, and Uruguay felt like, listen, we're doing this against the United States. In 1932, they're going to be hosting the Olympics, and there's no football. Let's do something quickly before they host the Olympics. And they expected the support of everybody. For some reason, most European countries didn't come, and they felt like, oh, we didn't make our points. They had laughing at us now and saying we didn't get what we wanted to do, and I understand that, yeah. But the distance, the stress of going through the Atlantic Ocean by sea then must have been very rough, really.
Must have been an incredible thing to experience for anybody. So 13 countries are the initial countries that were involved in the initial World Cup. Small beginning, so to speak, and then over the years it has transformed into this great big global phenomenon. Now the next World Cup was held in 1934, and that was hosted and won by Italy. Now, they beat Czechoslovakia 2-1, at least the then Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic, in extra time. Now, the Italians retained their trophy in France in 1938, which they denied to Hungary 2-1, also in extra time. And what would have been held in 1942 and 1946 World Cups had to be cancelled due to
World War.
World War II at that time. Again, they came up again in 1950, if I'm not wrong, according to my notes, and in one of the most stunning outcomes in the tournament's history, Brazil, which needed just a draw in the final against Uruguay to win the trophy, conceded 2 late goals.
Well, there's always been this healthy rivalry between Brazil and Uruguay, and it's come way back from the 1950s. Now, Brazil had won that tournament, so they thought.
Okay.
That tournament was already in the bag.
Big country, small country.
And people across the globe, you know, football wasn't televised until later.
Yes.
So it was by telegram. People were already sending a telegram to Brazil that, listen, we've done it already. It's been done, and get ready, start celebrations, and they stunned Brazil. And I think Brazil still feels it. I'm sure every time Brazil meets Uruguay, they still remember that from the history books and play very well, really.
Yes, but Uruguay has been like the smallest country that has done this sort of feat with football, but they haven't really had much since then. Since the 1950s, they haven't been able to come up on that wire.
I think what Uruguay have going for them is the fact that they were the only country that actually brought out their head and said, okay, good, we're willing to die, we must host this thing, football must come to stay, and let the US guys play the American football, we play football here. So the essence of football is always around Uruguay, not because they are fantastic football team, but they actually have this thing like, if not for Uruguay, the World Cup will not be here today. They actually went out of their way to get money to actually host and all that, despite all, really.
So do you agree with that Uruguay are sort of pioneers in this field, even though they haven't been able to follow up with wins in the tournament?
Yeah, I do. And that is why I would not blame them 100% for not wanting to attend that of Italy in 1934.
Okay.
You know, they felt you know, heartbroken. Like, how can we do this and you not want to come over? Though it was very clear, it was obvious that there were problems of transportation and everything. But at that time, it didn't occur to them. It was something of a passion for them. It was passionate. They just saw it that, oh, you just didn't want to honor our call.
Okay.
And so how do you expect
beyond
us?
Logistics.
Yes. I mean, that tournament, the first one, the 1930 World Cup that Uruguay hosted, there were seven South American teams. Yes. There were 4 European teams, just 4. The turnout was poor. So they felt that, why should you expect us to come and honor yours? So I wouldn't blame them, because it's something that was personal. They took it personal. They really took it personal. And yes, you know, Uruguay as a team, they've always had this rivalry, this healthy rivalry with Brazil, you know, and the likes of Argentina, you know, such say the kings of South America, South American football. And you know, it was just good that they could actually make that happen. I mean, Uruguay could actually make it happen.
Continuing with our journey through the history of the World Cup, we look at the 1954 edition of that tournament, which was hosted by Switzerland and won by West Germany. They unexpectedly beat Hungary 3-2 in the final game. Brazil's agonized wait for a first world title ended in faraway Sweden in 1958, where they beat their hosts through the talents of then 17-year-old Pelé. Continuing with the 1962 World Cup, Brazil continued its dominance, where they retained their trophy after beating Czechoslovakia 4-1. The 1966 World Cup was hosted and won by England, courtesy of a controversial final 4-2 victory over West Germany in London. Brazil won a record 3rd title in 1970 in the tournament that was held in Mexico, which allowed them to hang on to the Jules Rimet trophy for good. The new trophy, renamed the FIFA World Cup, was hosted and won by West Germany, who beat a sublime Dutch team 2-1 in the final match. 1978 sees Argentina replicating Germany's feat when they also hosted and won the tournament, also beating Holland 3-1 in the final of an also controversial tournament. Spain hosted the 1982 World Cup, at the end of which Italy matched Brazil's 3-time winning record. Now, they had ended a 44-year wait by beating West Germany 3-1 in the final match. Now, Mexico became the first country to hold the World Cup for the second time in 1986 after the initially designated host Colombia had to pull out for logistic reasons. At the end of the tournament, Argentina were champions for a second time, having beaten West Germany 3-2 in the final. Argentina's feat was not without drama, however, especially in their quarter-final game against England, where scandal, as in the infamous hand of God goal, was followed by a high of hygienism.
Here's Maradona. This is a fine run. Didn't really have the moment to balance himself for the shot. And the miss kick came from Hodge, and the corner is given. Were to be sent off, but apparently referees are not carrying it out, so it's all a muddle. But let's hope we don't have that same kind of situation in the second half. And of those who haven't seen that much of Hodge or Trevor Stephen, and Maradona just walked away from Hoddle then. Valdano, Hodge and Maradona! They're appealing for offside. The ball came back off the foot of Steve Hodge, and Maradona gives Argentina the lead. The England players protesting to the referee for the little man who started it by walking past Glenn Hoddle. That's where the ball came from Hodge. Maradona had continued the run forward, and the goal is given. At what point was he offside? Or was it a use of the hand that England are complaining about? Well, certainly his arm was up. Peter Shilton protested immediately, but the goal stands. Slight weakness in the England captain's goalkeeping skills. It is that he's not maybe as quick off his line as other goalkeepers tend to do. And that ball was played through to him, but here's Maradona again. He has Burchaga to his left and Valdano to his left. He won't need any of them. Oh, you have to say that's magnificent. There is no debate about that goal. That was just pure football genius.
Now, we are talking Maradona here.
Maradona is a fantastic player. The high point of that match was not the match per se, was the politics behind the match. You know, 5 years before that match was staged, there was the Falkland Wars.
Yes.
The UK against Argentina. And when it was time for them to play, there was this story about the newspapers about the Falkland Wars coming back again, you know. And the two best goals that Maradona ever scored, and the two best goals actually scored in that competition, was Maradona against England, the hand of God, and the second one, a sublime finish after taking 5 men out, and still scored that goal. And you can't take it from him. Those were the goals that made Maradona Diego King today in South America. He can compete favorably with Pelé today based on the fact that he single-handedly lifted that team. England were good to go. England were on the field, were actually together as a team. They could make it happen. They needed a little time. Actually beat Argentina eventually. They were together, they were playing as a team, they were locked down. And one man just picks a whole team up and beats them 2-1. I think Maradona got his king status from that match against England.
Okay, so one man inspires a nation, so to speak, to continue what would be sort of a legitimate warfare, don't you think?
Yeah.
And, okay, Kennedy.
Yes.
One man inspires a nation.
Yes.
And leads on. And what do you think now since then? Because Diego Maradona has had many problems, you know, as a player afterwards and as a coach. Well, could you care to comment about that?
Yeah, Diego Armando Maradona is we all know he was a player that loved the game so much, and he's still a player that loves. He's still a person that loves the game so much. Argentina believe in him so much. The players he played with at the stage at that time, you know, he was the captain of the team. He boosted them. His presence, you know, immediately the next World Cup that he hosted, immediately he was discovered to be positive for drugs, and he was banned. Argentina went out. They got defeated to Romania. Romania, I mean, they wouldn't have been defeated to a team like Romania if they had a player like Maradona.
Okay. Are you saying that it's like he really was the heart and soul of that Argentinian team? He was somebody that when he was present, the team were boosted. Psychologically, mentally, they were boosted.
they could, you know, they were psyched when they see him. You know, they almost didn't need a team psychologist. Once Maradona, a player like Maradona is there, you see, he gets his status, so to say, from like a match like the one he played against England, in the World Cup, where he got his famous goal, the two famous goals he scored. You know, he just jumped in the air, spun. You know, he spun and just gave the goal. It was fantastic. It was phenomenal. It was a handball though, but he was lucky not to have been caught by the referee. You know, and it was. Yeah, they didn't have all those cameras, all those angle cameras. And then
journalists across the globe have been described as a game changer. He's like your regular Luis Suarez, your regular Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. They come into the game, they can dig deep and actually win that game for you. Like he rightly said, yeah, one player. And he's not the one that's going to be playing, but you see, his presence there, he's part of everything. I don't know if you've seen Wayne Rooney play for Manchester United. Yeah. He's in defense, he's in midfield, he's in attack. He's everywhere, trying to help everybody else, you know. And a Romania beating Argentina in the World Cup, come on, that shouldn't have happened normally. Maradona was there, you know, and yes, we saw the difference. It was the hand of God again. Yes, it must have been the hand of God because the referee just didn't see it.
The two goals were very popular. You know, some people say it's just the hand of God. The hand of God was very popular. In fact, it's still the most popular goal in the history of the World Cup. But the second one, I don't undermine the second one. The second one is referred to as goal of the century.
It took 5 standard footballers.
From half,
when I mean standard, I mean
half length of the pitch.
In those days in the world of football, those were 5 world-class players in the English national team.
In English team,
yeah, and he just made them look like they were basketballers.
From half the length of the pitch, he drew before he hit the ball at the back of the net. So that was also nicknamed the goal of the century.
Yeah. You don't see that sort of thing every day.
You don't see it every day. It's something you see once in a lifetime. Yeah. So I personally glorify the 2 goals. I don't just glorify the hand of God. Most people just know about the hand of God because it's well talked about, but they don't talk about the goal of the century. I mean, goal of the century, if you want to know what it's all about, you know. So Maradona was simply phenomenal. He was simply phenomenal for his team. I mean, it was no surprise that they brought him on. They had to elect him to be coach, even though he didn't have much coaching experience. They just loved him. It was something that they were just passionate about him. Yeah. You know, he didn't have the CV, but they just had to push him. Oh, Maradona, he will do it. He has the luck. He has the, you know, the passion.
The mojo.
Yes, everything.
So inspired football from Maradona, and as we go on with our analysis of football on Mundial TV. I hope you're having a fantastic time. Now, keep on going on. After losing 2 successive finals in the 1980s, West Germany arrived in Italy, which was the venue for the 1990 World Cup. Now, they were determined to end the trend of near misses, and they did so in a most emphatic fashion. They beat Argentina 1-0 in the final game to claim their 3rd title. In 1994, the United States cemented its reputation as soccer's last frontier by hosting successfully the World Cup. Brazil beat Italy on penalties to win a record 4th title. The 1998 championship was hosted and won for the first time by France, who denied Brazil a successful title defense in the final via a 3-0 defeat.
Beaucoup d'ambiance, beaucoup d'émotion, car le pays tout entier est en train de vivre un moment capital de son histoire sportive. C'est vrai qu'on pourra toujours dire qu'il y a des choses plus importantes que le football. Sa défense, et il a relancé court avec Vicente Lizarazu.
Bien fait de la part de Zinedine Zidane, bien joué de la part... Oh, que c'est beau! Guivarch!
À bout de course, Stéphane Guivarch.
Il a pris un coup également et il n'a pas bien pu frapper ce ballon. Lizarazu. Oui, bien joué, contre-favorable et obstruction de Cafou.
Oui, un petit peu dans les...
Corner pour l'équipe de France.
Corner rentrant, il est bien frappé au premier poteau. But de Zidane!
Zidane sur ce premier corner français place un coup de tête magistral et ouvre le score.
2 dans les pieds,
Lizarazu.
extérieur du pied.
42. Petit.
Et oui. Le pied droit d'Emmanuel Petit. On a tué l'instant. Tout s'est trouvé.
Il est passé.
Oh là là, c'était la balle de 2-0 à la 45e minute.
Balle de 2-0. Djorkaeff, et but Zidane.
Deuxième but de Zidane.
Je vous avais dit, il y avait le corner qui venait, il y a eu 2 corners, et c'est le doublé de Zinedine Zidane, juste avant la mi-temps. 2 buts de la première période.
Qui a laissé le passage, qui a ouvert la porte. Allez Patrick, allez Patrick.
Vieira,
Pourquoi pas. Oui,
Deschamps,
voilà, c'est super ce que font
Zidane.
les 10 Français. À gauche, ils reviennent pas les Brésiliens,
Allez,
à gauche.
Emmanuel Petit
Allez,
qui vient.
à gauche.
Petit, et but.
Et troisième
Et
but.
but d'Emmanuel Petit.
Welcome back to Mundial TV. If you're just joining us, we've been recapping the decade of the 90s of the World Cup. So Kennedy, which of those tournaments did it for you?
Well, quite a number, but okay, I'll say 1998 was for me a time where it was a record breaking tournament, a tournament that they were setting pace, they were changing records, stuff like that. First of all, it was the first that had 32 teams, in the complete 32 teams now that we still have as we speak right now. That was the first time. So and then it went on again with what they call this team now. They beat Maldives by 17-0. That's Iran. That was Iran. Yes, Iran beat Maldives by 17-0. That's a record-breaking scoreline. 17-0. Yeah. Till now, I don't think there has been a scoreline like that.
And I hope nobody does it again.
Does it again? Yes. That was pure. That was embarrassment. That was like, it was brutal, very brutal for Maldives. My heart goes out to them. But they went on. France did a spectacular job at that World Cup. They beat Brazil 3-0. 3-0. I mean, they made Ronaldo was the highest scorer in that tournament. I think he had 4 goals. He had 4 goals. But that particular game, they made him look ordinary, very ordinary. They beat Brazil by 3-0. Ronaldo had little or nothing to do in the match. It was a shadow of himself. That match, I guess the defense did their job perfectly well.
That's not an easy
it's not easy task to mark Ronaldo. Of course, he's an exceptional striker. He's an exceptional striker.
Incredible
Ronaldo.
player.
Incredible player.
Stature, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, the 1998 World Cup, there were things. They just, it was one thing I know about the World Cup from the early 1970s to the 80s, where changing of formats. At the time there was no offside, and at the time players could beat the referee. Maradona had a lot of that. That was one thing for me I didn't like about Maradona. He was a very controversial player. He was found most times,
I think based on Maradona, I think it's not about Maradona. I think it's about South Americans. They have this way of trying to intimidate the official.
Well, I say they are too passionate about it.
It's not passionate. Most people say Luis Suarez is a I must win kind of guy. Yeah. And he's willing to spill blood if he has to win. But the truth be said, they're not that bad. They're not bad guys. They only want to win. And part of the reason is to lie, fall down, intimidate the officials. At all cost. And it's this at all cost syndrome. It's a South African thing. It's an African thing too. We must win this match. I will do anything. I will dig deep. I will do everything mortally possible to win this match. And I like that, really. I admire that. They might go about it the wrong way sometimes, but I admire that I want to win. I really must win syndrome. I think I like that from South America.
Yes, because sometimes it might be the only way to win it. Sometimes
it
might just be the only way to
win it.
Well,
these things happen.
Nigeria, we have African teams, we just go there to stage a normal, more like a church ceremony, like everything has to go normally, we have to do it the holy way, play football, win the normal way, but
the Nigeria.
No, the African teams.
No,
African
I think
that's
it's
what
the Africans have this attitude of one day go, I want you to win it.
Yeah, exactly. But we have to put in that all in all.
So, Wale, for all the tournaments that have gone on throughout the decades of the 1980s to the 1990s, which for you was particularly memorable?
For me, it would have been 82, because it wasn't about sports. It was about what went around behind the sports scene. There was this guy, Paolo Rossi, a striker. He ended up becoming the highest goal scorer in that particular tournament. And they actually had to go and get him from jail. He was jailed in 1981. He actually brought out in 82 to actually come and help Italy win the World Cup. That he did. And I think
that is how
from the World Cup, he went straight home. He didn't go back to jail anymore, really. But in 98, really, I'm a big fan of France. I still am, really, after Nigeria. And I didn't think France would beat that Brazil. And 2 goals from Zidane and 1 from Emmanuel Petit made my day. But I look at the French team today, the Blow, and they have not been... that's not the France that I used to know. They are recycling players, and the ones who are there are not as wonderful as the Zidanes of this world, the Yuri Yokayevs of this world. That bite of the Blow we used to know is not just in this French national team. For me, that is, really.
Oh, okay. Actually, yeah, just like I said before, when you asked me, I said a couple of them, not just one match. Another tournament that was really, you know, that really meant so much to me was that of '94. '94. I mean, the heights. That was like the heights of it for me, because football suffered some, you know, heartbreaks, some, you know, things that wouldn't normally happen in football. Like Maradona got tested positive. He was banned midway into the tournament.
Tested
he was
positive
for
recreational drugs.
Yeah, for drugs. Yeah, he got tested positive and he had to be banned midway through the tournament. It was a blow for Argentina because they got defeated by Romania. And then Andres Escobar, a Colombian defender, you know, he got murdered 10 days after he scored an own goal against the host.
But that was very dramatic, because the guy just walked up to him and for every shot he took it to his chest, he was shouting "goal," the shooter. And I think that's the kind of mission football does for you.
Which particular one are you talking about?
Escobar, the Colombian. And the guy, every shot he gave him in his chest, he was shouting. The guy was shouting "goal." The shooter was shouting "goal."
Oh, okay.
That's the kind of emotion that football brings.
That is emotion to the extreme when it comes to football.
But that's the way South Americans see football. It's like a religion for them.
Is it just South America, or is it nowadays?
You don't see that kind of passion.
I think that's where it's concentrated more. I mean, that passion.
Yeah.
I don't think any other continent has, you know, the passion for football than South America. We just have to give it to them.
It's more than more than sports. It's more than a lifetime. It's almost like a religion.
A nation like Brazil, you know, you can say Brazil is a country that football has done a lot for, in terms of their economy, you know, upgrading the country, changing their status and everything. Football has made Brazil a very wonderful country, you know. It is even financially.
Brazilians are built to play football. I have only seen 2 Nigerians in my entire sports analysis and reportage. I have only seen 2 Brazilians who can play football, Julio Baptista and Anderson. And after those 2, I think everyone that Brazilian is built to play football, really, in my opinion.
And so football, as they call it, jogo bonito.
Yeah.
So apart from that, you know, Maradona being banned for drugs, tested positive, and Escobar being murdered 10 days after he scored an own goal. You know, Oleg Salenko, a player for Russia, a Russian striker. He scored 5 goals in a single game.
Amazing.
It's still a record till now. Yeah, in a single World Cup match, he scored. Actually, Russia beat Cameroon in that game 6-1, but he scored 5 of the goals single-handedly, and then 6-1. Yeah, and the only goal Cameroon had was scored by Roger Miller, and he was 42 at then, and which it still makes him the oldest player to score in a World Cup tournament.
Well, we're still going on with that journey. So football, which is a game of passion, of skill, continues right after the break with Mundial TV. Stay with us.
Feel the intensity of football's greatest showpiece, the 20th edition of the FIFA World Cup in Brazil. Look no further than Mundial TV, showing live on this station. For sponsorship and advert placement, please call 080-6036-4384 or 081-8808-5881. You can also email us at mundialtv@worldsportsmax.com or fybankole@yahoo.com. For showtimes, highlights, and updates, join the conversation on Twitter or hang out with us on Google+. Mundial TV. Feel the game.
Welcome back. This is Mundial TV, and if you're joining us, we will continue with our history of the World Cup itself, looking at that in the light of the upcoming 2014 World Cup, which will be starting in June. Now, Brazil was not going to be denied in the World Cup 2002 as they stormed to a 5th world title, beating Germany in the finals 2-0. This was held by 2 countries for the first time, which is South Korea and Japan. Germany, incidentally, were the hosts of the next tournament in 2006. Now there, Italy beat neighboring France with penalties after a 1-all draw to win their 4th title. Now there was a certain headbutt and a red card that cast an ironic twist to that final encounter. Take a look.
In goal, the back four, Zambrotta and Canova. The goalkeeper's right, the left as we look. Does Zidane change his mind? A war of nerves here between one of the world's great players and one of the world's best goalkeepers. Oh, he's hit the underside of the bar, was he over the line? A goal has been given. A goal has been given. He chose to give. Matarachi climbing. Oh, it's the equaliser. And it's the man who gave away the penalty. Coming in on the far side, Ribery's cross, Materazzi clears.
Great play. That's the Henri you want to see every game.
There's a player down as well, Mark. Sylvain Wiltord can't get going there because... hang on.
This is interesting. This is Trezeguet, we think. Trezeguet with Materazzi, is it?
Yes, and the assistant referee has seen something. Buffon has run across to him. There's been an incident here. I think it's Zidane, Mark. I think a head may have gone in there. I think a head went in there somewhere.
Well,
the assistant referee...
I would say neither of the officials have seen this.
It's Zidane's head into the chest of Materazzi. That's what it is. And Zidane, who was sent off in the 1998 World Cup, if the referee had seen that, he was surely in trouble again here. And the referee has gone across now with his hand in his pocket. He's been told about it. It's off. It's red. It's Zidane. The assistant referee, whether the 4th official saw something because of the delay, Domenech is sarcastically applauding.
You can't argue with that.
The referee, belatedly, the man who sent off Wayne Rooney, is about to send off Zinedine Zidane.
In terms of the decision, as long as they've seen it, it is impossible to argue against it.
This is the incident. Materazzi had an arm round Zidane there. Then they looked at each other. Why did this go on so long?
Well, I think words were obviously said, weren't they? Obviously, Materazzi said something to
There
him.
it is. Now, you can't excuse that.
Coming back to that, what in the world happened? Zidane is thought to be the gentleman player, right?
Yeah, well, some school of thought, some people on some French media are equipped, but some other ones said that incidentally one of Zidane's female family members is actually a female of negotiable virtue. And, you know, and he was tugging on Zidane's shirt all the time. Cannavaro was always on him, you know, behind him is a defender. It was always on him. And Zidane was like, listen, leave my shirt alone. I'll give the shirt to you after the match. And the guy was like, no, I prefer your sister. And, you know, that would take anybody off, you know, off balance, really.
Goodness.
And
that's the story. That is the
he got a
story
red
behind
card.
that.
And most people believe that, without Zidane in that, if Zidane was still in that game, France would have won that match.
Wow.
But when Zidane was sent off, it dampened the morale. The midfield ace, the man who was controlling the midfield, was gone. And Italy had the field day. Ironically, it was Materazzi and Zidane who scored each goal.
I feel that was a game. That was a game for between Zidane and Materazzi. They were the two
always together, always
limelights
pushing each other,
of that,
you know?
of that game. Zidane on his own was controlling the midfield. He was giving the dead ball passes and the dead ball, you know, through balls to kill the defense of the opposing team. And Materazzi was doing the defensive marshalling, you know, he was doing a great job. And even going against Zidane, I mean, defending against Zidane, frustrating him.
And then Zidane was unstoppable.
And
it was doing a good job of stopping Zidane, really.
And it was within that, you know, context that he got to, you know, pull Zidane's shirt and, you know, he got head-booted for that. I mean, Zidane head-booted. But I would have said I don't buy that idea, you know.
But please don't bring sentiment into something. Listen, if I have a problem and it's really hurting, don't play with it. Don't use it as a game point against me. This thing is hurting him. This is one of the major problems that he has. Don't use that as a pawn, a card against him.
Yeah, but,
but
isn't it typical? Isn't it typical in sports to use it as a tactic? I mean, you are trying to win.
Yes, Zidane should have known better. I agree, but some things hurt beyond that. You don't reason anymore.
There are teams that really use it as tactics. A good example is Spain.
Yeah.
Spain is a team that when you look at, you see Barcelona, or should I say Barcelona is a team that when you look at, you see Spain. They both they play alike, they have, they set their goals alike. Barcelona will act, they will play act. It was led up to last year or 2 years ago, I heard that after training, Barcelona actually has a training where a theoretical training, theater training, to act. After field training, they train the players how to act. Like, that is another training on its own. How to act. That was the first time I was hearing it in football ever. Like, so that when they when they are fouled, like what you call simulation. What we call simulation. To act and make the referee believe otherwise. What truly happened? There was a classic example, Sergio Busquets against. Though this is club football.
And that is not what we're discussing.
Yeah, but those players at Spain are known for such theatrics, and it's a very good weapon for them because it works for them.
Yeah, but it's a very good weapon. You would agree with me that for people who do sports, it's said that a man who is angry cannot do anything well. And that's why Muhammad Ali in boxing will always continuously insult you, so you can get angry. And when you are angry, you're not doing it right anymore. So in football, too, no matter how good you are, if you can get to that spot where Materazzi got in Zidane, he stops playing. I think
and it was effective.
It was effective because Zidane left the French team, and it was as if France just left. It was just the team going blue.
And that is.
But don't you think Zidane is a player that he's a player that goes angry too easily? He's more or less not a gentleman. Zidane.
I have not seen Zidane go as far as headbutting or pushing anybody in a long time. Yes, he will shout, he will walk away from the referee, he will say something inaudible that the referee cannot use against him in future. But to headbutt at the World Cup final,
it seemed like an extreme.
That must have really
watching it seemed like
in a World Cup final as a professional. He's done well. He's played. He has had a wonderful career in football. So in a final, France would have won that match.
And I would say Zidane for me, unlike players like Ryan Giggs, not collecting a yellow card all through his professional football career. That's an achievement.
It's incredible.
That's incredible. Not just that he's not collecting it, he's actually winning titles. He has a lot of titles. There's a legend that says that Ryan Giggs has more trophies than Arsenal. So I won't go there, but. Player like Zidane for me, he's an outstanding player. He knows the game. He knows football. He knows how to marshal the midfield. But one problem I think he has is he's hot-tempered, and it really does affect him so many times. When he was in Italy, in Italian league, he has so many red cards. So I'm just giving an example of how much of a hot-tempered person Zidane can be.
That didn't stop him from.
I know some players. I know some players.
Tournament's best players.
When they got to France, they were actually still trying to psych the players up. Like, listen, you guys won that game. Because I remember there was a particular big poster at the stadium when they were going to wave to the French people, and they said, whether you like it or not, France still won the World Cup. With Zidane. So that was just to make them pick up, and Zidane should look away. But I think despite all, a rush to the head, Zidane gets it all wrong, and France lose the World Cup.
Because to me, Zidane is a global icon. He's not just best player for France. He's someone. Zidane today, many people regard him as let's say the father of midfield.
Yeah, living legend.
He has his own legends like Maradona. He can be put in that class. So if you're a player and Zidane recommends you, like his team where he is now, Real Madrid, they buy you. He just says get this player, and they get him. It's all part of respect. Players like Eusebio for Portugal, So this is a player that with his hot temper, just that hot temperness just got the most of him, and he actually.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Zinedine Zidane has his origins in North Africa.
Yes, Algeria.
Right, Algeria. Yes. And speaking of Africa, we're also here to have a look at the journey of Africa in the World Cup. And we've gotten to that point where we can discuss that. Now, looking at South Africa, for instance, after all the apartheid years, horrible racist policy, and which truncated their sporting platform in the world. They now get the chance, for the first time, an African country, South Africa, hosts the World Cup. Now, at the end of that, Spain became the first European country to win the tournament outside of the continent of Europe, right? Now, they beat the Netherlands in the World Cup final, and this was a strange final because it didn't have the big four, so to speak. Argentina wasn't there, Brazil wasn't there, Germany wasn't there, Italy wasn't there.
前半5分いきなりフリーキックのチャンスを得ました。スペイン、セルジオ・ダモスのダイビングヘッド、ステケレンブルグよく防ぎました。0対0のままです。ステケレンブルグのファインセーブに救われましたオランダ。前半12分、再びスペインの攻撃。ファーポスト、フリーなのはダビド・ビジャー。左足でサイドボレーを見せましたが、サイドネット。右サイド、延長後半4分、シャビトのワンツー、イニエスタが抜け出したところ、ハイティンガーが手を使ってしまいました。イニエスタを引っ張って止めたハイティンガーが最初にチャンスを作ったのはスペイン。早くも前半5分、セルジオ・ラモスに決定的なチャンスが訪れますが、ラモスのダイビングヘッドはステケレンブルクが決死のパンチングで防ぎます。試合はイエローカードが前半だけで5枚出ましたが、両チーム得点を挙げることはできず、スコアレスのまま迎えた後半17分、オランダに絶好のチャンスが訪れます。スナイデルの素晴らしいスルーパスからロッベンが抜け出し、ゴールキーパーカシージャスと1対1。しかしこれを右足1本で防ぎ、コーナーキックへと逃れます。負けられないスペインは後半25分、ビジャがゴール前でフリーになりますが、ハイティンガが懸命にスライディング、足に当ててこれを防ぎます。後半38分にはまたしてもオランダにカウンターのチャンス。シャビトのワンツーで抜け出したイニエスタをハイティンガが引っ張って止め、2枚目のイエローカード、退場です。そして試合終了4分前、数的優位のスペインがついに均衡を破ります。ファブレガスからボールを受けたイニエスタが力強いボレーシュートをゴール左隅へと突き刺し、先制点を奪います。延長後半11分にイニエスタが気持ちのこもったボレーシュートをゴールに突き刺し、スペインが1対0で勝利。アフリカ大陸初のワールドカップはスペインの優勝で幕を閉じました。おめでとうスペイン。そして7時間の時差の中、1ヶ月にわたりモバイルから。
How did that work out for you guys?
I think lately, I've always said this to people that want to hear. Somebody asked me an international program, sports program, they called in and were talking to me. And they said, Wally, what team do you think would surprise the world at the World Cup? And I'm sure I must have stumped the guy because he stopped talking for a while. I said Belgium.
Belgium.
Ironically, yeah. Because, you see, the Germany of this world, for me, they are being recycled. I can only find a few world-class players who are relatively young amongst them. It's the same names, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Philipp Lahm, the same, except for a few brilliants that's coming to it, Mesut Ozil, and a few names. With France, it's the same people, same old names. We know what they can do. We know how they play. You know, there's nothing new about them. And so it started from South Africa 2010. You saw the guys in the finals. Well, Spain, maybe we expected that. But Netherlands, for me, I didn't expect that. I expected Germany in the finals and Italy in the finals. And going into the 2014 World Cup, I'm saying these teams are not that fantastic anymore. Okay. I say Belgium because did you know that in the history of the World Cup qualifying, in 2014 Brazil World Cup, Belgium qualified first for the World Cup. Yes, and nobody's talking about Belgium. They've got massive players in their team. Yeah. Benteke, Eden Hazard and his brother, Marouane Fellaini, Vincent Kompany.
Yes,
massive
the
players they have.
Vertonghen, their keeper Simon Mignolet,
yeah.
and you know,
massive players that we watch these guys day in, day out in the Premiership, in the Spanish Bundesliga, in the German Bundesliga, in the Spanish La Liga, in the French Le Championnat, and we don't ask questions about where these guys play. You'll be surprised at the caliber and the standard of players that are going to be in the Belgian national team in Brazil. Massive. And they qualified first for the World Cup this 2014.
Yeah, I'm another person that thinks Belgium will do a wonderful job at the World Cup. The only fear I'm having for them is if they have the managerial know-how.
Yeah.
I mean, if they could get a wonderful manager, it doesn't have to be from Belgium. If they have the perfect manager for the job, he can actually do it. They have the spirit, they have the players, You know, they're not on books. They are not going to be tipped.
They are mistaken.
Gentlemen, before we get ahead, because this is plenty of action that we're going to be looking at the 2014 World Cup. But what I was trying to get to was the 2010 World Cup, which was, you know, was played in Africa.
Yeah.
In Africa, which was a big deal. It took quite a bit for us to get that. But how do you see that in terms of the impact that it had for South Africa, for African football as a whole?
Yeah,
if there's such a thing.
I'll tell you why.
Fantastic, explain.
Despite all the years of apartheid, whether you like it or not, the guys who were there, the colored skin, the white skinned guys who were there, actually had structures on ground. They actually did leave good structures on ground.
Football.
And for football and other things. So South Africans just needed to build on it, which they did. And that's why a country like South Africa can say, world, come to us and come and play the World Cup. Some countries in Africa don't have the kind of structures that South Africa has due to apartheid, really. Because when those guys left, they left those structures.
We're loath to admit that, but there you have it. And what was your opinion on that?
Well, South Africa, I would say they hosting the World Cup. It was a fantastic thing for Africa. It was a fantastic thing for South Africa themselves. You know, it was something that really they really gained massively on. You know, imagine the world turning up at South Africa.
The whole world.
People, I mean, you know, airports were busy, train and everything. South Africa as a nation, you know, they were massive. You know, what they call them, the hotel rooms were booked everywhere. They were, you know, it just blessed the nation as a whole economically, and you know. The most important thing is that they finally went on to build on it, to build on what they achieved after hosting that World Cup, 2010 World Cup. And you know, it was the first time in history that an African country was going to host it. And you know, it was before the World Cup, everyone was very excited.
And hopefully, I'm sorry to cut you short there, we're short on time. Hopefully it's not going to be the last time, I think.
Of course.
We have an opportunity come 2014.
We've shown the world that Africa can do it too. So
hopefully we're going to have more and more chances as African nations come into the World Cup, and we're looking forward to how we're all going to perform, the qualifying African nations at the 2014 World Cup. Now, if you are still with us, make sure that you keep in touch with us via email at mundialtv@m10africa.com. Join us on Facebook at World Sports Max, and follow us on Twitter at World Sports Max, and you will see it scrolled on your screen, so I don't have to repeat that too many times and confuse you and myself. So join us for the next edition of Mundial TV, where we're going to be giving you in-depth analysis of Africa's journey into the World Cup. And speaking of which, your parting shots. How far do you think we'll go?
Predicting, I think most African things will do us proud. They will do very well. They might not be able to win the World Cup. I don't predict that yet, but about impressing, I think Nigeria will definitely impress in the World Cup.
And Kennedy?
Yes, they're going to do well. They're going to do well. Of course. Winning the World Cup is not something that just starts today and just, you know, it's something that we have to do. It's going to be a long time process, but it's going to happen anyways. But eventually it will happen, not just now. So we have to be very practical. We have to be very, very reasonable about it.
I hope that the god of football and the god of the World Cup is an African, and specifically a Nigerian. Make sure you join us next time on Mundial TV.